Good morning, everybody. And it is time to get started. I am Pandora Freestone, one of the co-chairs of the event for today. The other co-chair of our committee is Carol Chance. She's right back here. Raise your hand, wave at everybody, Carol. And if you're on the committee, would you please stand? Thank you so much, everybody, for all your hard work throughout the entire year, our Veterans Project, as well as putting together this conference. Boy, it took everybody. What I'd like to do now is introduce John Boggs to you. He's going to come up and introduce our speaker for this morning. And we have a rough outline for the day if you just check in your agenda there. And we're going to try to stick with that just as best as we can. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give you John Boggs.
Well, good morning again. I'm glad to see everybody here. We have an exciting day planned. I am pleased and honored to introduce our keynote speaker today, Dr. Mary Prentice. Got to visit with her for a little bit on the way from the hotel this morning and chatted about lots of different things. Dr. Prentice, her relationship to San Jac is pretty deep. This is her second visit. She spoke at our conference last year, our first service learning roundup. But she was in the cohort with Dr. Pendergrass, Dr. Tony Pendergrass at the University of Texas in the Community College Leadership Program there, PhD program. So she's known Tony for quite some time, and so we're really, really pleased to have her not only as a professional, but as a personal relationship as well. Dr. Prentice, I asked for some sort of little tidbit about her apart from her official bio, and she informed me that she is if there are any philosophers out here, she's a deconstructionist. Although she doesn't deconstruct books as much as she deconstructs homes. She said one of her hobbies is home repair, but she said if you have any projects, make sure you have about 5 years to get them done. But she does like to rebuild, tear down and rebuild. So, and if you think about it, that's a lot about what we do in education. We kind of tear down some of those old scripts and emotions and struggles that our students have, and we try to help them rebuild. So that's a good analogy, I think. She has a couple of dogs, I believe, and she has a new puppy, and so she's very busy with those things. She also wanted to let you know that while she's at a university right now, and I'll get into that in a moment, but her real heart is with community colleges and helping community college students succeed, and we all know how important that is, so we can all appreciate that. Dr. Prentice is Associate Professor in the Educational Management and Development Department at New Mexico State University. She began teaching over 20 years ago as a psychology instructor at Central New Mexico Community College in Albuquerque. She was also the faculty coordinator of the college's service learning program. Before coming to New Mexico State University, Mary was the Dean of Social Sciences and Public Service at Illinois Valley Community College. In addition to her faculty work, she has since 2003 served as the grant evaluator for the American Association of Community Colleges Broadening Horizons Through Service Learning Project, which focuses on service learning's connection to civic engagement, learning outcomes, and retention. We're delighted to have Dr. Mary Prentice here, and I'd like for us to give her a great round of applause and invite her up to the podium.
Thank you very much, John. You're great. Okay. I am not making phone calls. I'm going to try to stick with the time. So I have my little timer on. Don't want to go too much over time. I think I've got this down. I think it'll be okay. Thank you all so much for having me back. This is such an honor. I mean, the first time you asked me, you're like, yeah, I hope she's okay. But if you asked me twice, I couldn't have done that bad of a job. So I really appreciate it. I have to say that you all at this college are the kindest hosts. Everyone is friendly and kind. They're on top of things. You anticipate my need even before I even have it. I am amazed at how wonderful that you all work as a team. I do want to say, however, that I've messed the team up a little bit in that the PowerPoint that's in your packet is just a rough approximation of the PowerPoint that you're going to see. I've fiddled with it like almost up to the time I was on the plane, so we can certainly get that to you. This will keep you busy in figuring out, what's new and like, wait, that's not in my thing. So I apologize for that. There's some more information in here. Okay, now I've got to get all technical here. Oh, great, okay. I hate when I'm not smart enough for this. Aw, what do I do? Okay, it says next. Whoa, wow, I don't know my own power. Wow. Pandora had already, in a sense, done this for me. I was gonna have the committee stand up to be thanked, because look at all those names that had been participating this year to pull this off and to do the Veterans Project. Amazing. I also wanted to thank Eve Stahlberg, who got me tickets and processed everything and had everything done perfectly weeks ahead of time. It was amazing. And certainly Tony Pendergrass, who, we go way back into doctoral days where we were all messed up and sleep deprived, and she's amazing. I always knew that wherever she went, if there were ever a job, I would always work for her. She's an amazing woman. And I'm sorry that New Mexico's taking her. I'm only a little sorry, actually. Okay, so little pop quiz. First of all, you heard a little bit about me, and I just want to explain why I came to service learning, or how I came to it, give you some grounding. When I was in Central New Mexico Community College teaching psychology, at that point it was called TVI, so I may slip and say that. I was teaching psychology, and I've always been someone who feels that I will never, there's no such thing as a perfect teacher. I always need to be learning, right? There's always something more I could be doing for my students. And so this idea came along, this service something in the mid-90s, and it was explained to me that you have your students in your class learn the class content while they go out into a community agency that relates to that class, and the community agency benefits. The students have richer learning. Civic engagement is created with these students, and I thought, dang, why wouldn't I not do that? It seemed like, of course, this is amazing that the students get to go out and experience the learning. Seemed like, of course, I would do that. And that's how I got started. I worked with faculty for a while at C&M, TVI, and then went on and got my doctoral degree. I did my dissertation on service learning. I did an internship at the American Association of Community Colleges on service learning. At the university, you have to have a research trajectory, and everything I've done at the university, almost everything has been on service learning in community colleges. So it is my heart and my passion. I think it's amazing what it does for students and what it does for faculty too, and community partners. Enough about me. So who do we have in the room? Do we have any administrators? One, but also teach? Okay. Any students? One. I hope you get like triple, double credit for this, is what I hope. Do we have anyone from the community partners? They'll be here later, great. So faculty, everyone's faculty? Most everyone? Okay. How many of y'all have done service learning have you used it in your classes? Okay, way more than half. And then others are new to it, not used it, but you're interested, you're here, you want to explore it. Okay, wonderful. So we've got some experienced people in the room who are wonderful mentors for the people who want to learn how to do it, because service learning is a community where we share a lot of our information. And so you can go to anyone on any campus who is doing service learning and find out information about how they do it in their class. Okay, let's see. I want to say where all this information came from. I really want to give credit to Gail Robinson at the American Association of Community Colleges. They have a service learning department, I guess, and she's the director. She hired me almost 10 years ago to be the grant evaluator for these service learning grants, and that's how I became involved with AACC. And so now we're looking back at almost 10 years. We started in 2003, and amazingly, because of Gail, we're about the only research that's being done on a national level in community colleges. There's research being done K-12 service learning, there's research being done on university or higher ed service learning, but they don't differentiate between community colleges and universities. And so Gail is the only one doing the community college service learning research, and I'm very honored to be working with her. Over the 10 years, we've done accumulation all through the projects, about 4,000 surveys. And those are both service learning and matched comparison surveys, which are very important for the muckety-mucks who do research. We've looked at 30 colleges over this time. We've had 125 focus group participants, and they provided about 21 hours of dialogue with us. And so basically everything we know comes from the students, the faculty who have participated in this research. And all the quotes that I'll be mentioning today have come from the student faculty group focus group participants. Okay, so the presentation, why, what, and how. First of all, before I define it even, I'm going to talk about why we should do this. Hopefully, if you're not hooked already, I will hook you in with the compelling reasons to do this teaching strategy. And we'll talk about what it is. It seems on the surface that it would be simple, but it also gets all mucked up with, okay, well, wait, what's the difference between that and volunteerism? And when does that turn into internship? And I don't know what I'm doing. So we're going to talk about some of the ways to define it, and then we'll begin just looking at how to do it, but we'll spend the rest of the day, this afternoon, late this morning, this afternoon, working on how to do it. Because, no kidding, it needs to be experiential. So I can talk, blah, 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 and then you're going to go do it, and then you're going, oh, I get it now, because you'll be experiencing the real thing. So here is what we know. Why service learning? This is what a student told me last May, at the end of May, during a focus group. She was adorable. Her name was Whitney Rose. And she said, service learning, what does it mean to me? It's the vortex of awesome. I thought, perfect. I'm going to write an article one day and make someone publish that as the title, the vortex of awesome. So we've loved that it was so important to her that this was an amazing thing that everyone should do. We've now teased that we should have little vortexes on our clothes and have that be our logo. Service learning is awesome for many reasons, and one of them is that it provides the connections for deep learning. What service learning does is it takes our academic content in the classroom, both of what we say in the classroom, the textbooks and the readings that we give our students, and then that's going to be connected to community service at a nonprofit agency in our community that does work related to our content. And we're going to tie that together for students. They're going to reflect on their own, certainly, but we're also going to help them through reflection. And that's going to be a key I'll talk about in a minute, is the importance of reflection in this experience. Because students will learn without reflection, and they will learn a lot more if you help guide them with some questions and some structured journals or activities. So we'll talk about the role of reflection in a minute. Service learning is also awesome because it does everything. And yes, I know it sounds like I'm being a little Pollyanna, but the whole 10 years, what we have found is over and over again, when we've done a study on service learning and how it influences civic engagement, or service learning and how it influences learning outcomes, or service learning and how it influences career prep, workforce prep, or how we're now looking at or how it affects retention. And what we find is that no matter what we look at, it's though service learning is a prism, and the student enters the prism and has all of those outcomes from one experience. So I may have set up the service learning to be because I want my students to be civically engaged. Well, at the end of that experience, I can talk to them, and they will know more about civic engagement. They'll be more participatory. They'll know about their elected officials. They'll know where to go in the community to help other people. But whether I intended it or not, hopefully I did intend, but whether I intended it or not, they will also have learned more in the class. If you measure institutional learning outcomes of communication and listening and writing and reading, they'll score higher on those. I may not have really thought that I was preparing them for career prep or teamwork, but they're going to tell me that's what they got out of it too. And then they're going to describe how they are now more connected to the college. They know people on campus, they know me, they feel a little more connected to the faculty, they know each other, and they feel more confident in their success. And so one service learning experience does all of these. No matter what we intend it to do, you're going to get all four of these, which I think is amazing because other teaching strategies may not have this kind of a wide variety of outcomes. It's very cost effective. I think you get 4 or more outcomes for the price of 1. When we look at some of the things we know about civic engagement for community college students, there was a lot of outcry that students are not engaged, and there's always this call that higher education's mission is to educate students to become democratic citizens and participatory citizens. And so we looked at civic engagement, and we found, yes, indeed, students who participated in service learning, no matter what it was, it's not that we had them do work on political campaigns or voting drives. It wasn't at all focused necessarily on civic engagement. It was just getting the student out into the community, doing work that related back to their coursework, and you had students with these aha moments where they are, oh my gosh, the world's bigger than me, and I can make a difference. And so here are two quotes that I think kind of represent what we found about service learning. I apologize for reading, but I want the students to have a voice here. Service learning has strengthened my commitment to want to go into there, meaning the organization. Once you know a problem is there, you can't really turn your back and just pretend you never really saw that need. So that student's been changed for life, right? They've gone in, they've had this experience, and they're like, oh, okay, wow, I now know this is there. A lot of people say, I'm not going to do this because it's not going to make a difference. But you can't give up. Just because people don't care, does that mean you're not going to care? So the student's seeing the bigger picture, right? And you know, everyone around them might be saying, no, it's hopeless, or the news might be saying it's hopeless, and they're saying, no, it's not. This is an important thing to do. Learning, obviously, we want students to learn. That's often our primary reason for doing service learning, is we want outcomes to be higher. We want them to learn more. We want them to learn more deeply. And certainly we have found that service learning does that, yay. There was a lot of discussion about how do we know that students are learning, how do we measure that, and so we did a survey where we looked at institutional learning outcomes, very similar to the ones you have for your college, and I'll mention those later. And we find that service learners score higher at the end of the semester on those outcomes than the non-service learners who are coming from matched classes. And here's what the students in this project told us. Service learning teaches every student how to get into a real-life situation and think about it critically and logically. Okay, if those words came from any of our students, we would be, you know, wow, yay, critically and logically, yay. Service learning in the class made the information that was presented more helpful and relevant because we're learning everything and then going outside and applying that. And that makes a lot of sense. So what you're hearing is a sense of real life, get to do work in the real world, whatever that means. Not like we're not real, but, and the sense of relevancy, that they're seeing the connection. In terms of career workforce, this ties into getting out and getting experience and feeling confident in themselves. So many of them were students who were in a degree program, business, nursing, hygienist, therapeutic recreation. We had some students in that field. And so the service learning they did were in agencies, and their work related to their academic content, which is also their degree content. And students were saying, oh, okay, I've gotten to practice, and now I think I can do it. When you read the book, you have the idea. But the book doesn't tell you about the frustrations or the satisfaction you get from doing the job. It was always a question for me that I could be a business administration major. Service learning was like a prize for me that showed me I was going in the right direction. Because of service learning, I believe I am more prepared to be successful in my career from the first day on the job. I also think I'm more competitive in the job market than new graduates who have not had a service learning experience. And this student was reflecting on the fact that to get a job you need experience, but you need you have to get a job to have the experience to get the job to need experience, right? So this student was saying, I can come in and have something on my resume that says I have done some of this. I have a reference to give you, and that was a huge boost up compared to other graduates. And then in retention, and we're not quite done with this project yet on students who, do they stay in school longer, even within the semester if they're involved in service learning. Certainly the whole outcome of, do they graduate from service learning, that's probably not gonna happen in this study. We're not gonna, the funding was completely eliminated by Congress, so we won't be able to find that out. But what we find is that there are about 5 factors that when students feel those factors or have those factors in their life, the prediction is that they're much more likely to stay in school. And so 1 factor is great, 2's better, 3's better, 4's better, et cetera. And what students have is that they're connected to students after service learning. They feel a connection, they know someone else, some other people, they have a group. They'll say they're closer to their faculty member now. They know their faculty member and the faculty member knows them. And they're more involved in other campus activities because of that. And they also say that they have now more confidence in their ability to do academic work. And so if you add all those up, it helps a student stay in school when they're in doubt, right? They can call a friend. They could come talk to a faculty member. We don't bite. They found that out. And then they have some self resources to draw on. If they think, oh, maybe I can't do this academic work, they're going to feel a little bit more confident, and that might make the difference. So here is what students said. It was such a rewarding experience that it validated my reason for being in school. It made me want to stay in school. Yes, I do think that service learning with the college has influenced my decision to stay with the school, because it's one thing to sit in the classroom and be lectured to all day, but when you get hands-on activities, you learn things that you couldn't learn from a book. And so students really were talking about the relevancy. And remember, when they're in the classroom, we see the big picture, right? We have the degrees. We see how all these things, that all the classes they're taking are related and important. But they're in these individual classes, and they may not see it yet. Like, why am I taking this class? How is this going to work into what I'm doing? I don't see the connection. Well, service learning gives them an early way of finding out, oh, there is more to this whole workforce than just the classes in my workforce prep field. And that may help them stay the course when they're in a class that perhaps they don't like as much as the other classes they're taking. Okay, so let's talk about the definition of service learning. And there are many of them. I am not at all trying to suggest that there is only one, the one. Often I suggest that, and the research suggests, that campuses should get together and decide what your definition is. Come up with a working definition of what service learning is for your campus, for your college. The definition that I use, and through the American Association of Community Colleges, has 4 components. You know, we will say that it's not service learning unless it has all 4 of these. Others may disagree, but we call it academic service learning when you have academic instruction, you have the course content, you have community service at a nonprofit. It's not a for-profit because that would be called an internship because they would be getting paid or the company would be making money, and it's not about the student. So we have academic instruction, we have a community agency. With those connections, they're developing civic engagement, and we're helping them do it through reflection. And reflection is really a key. We'll focus a little bit more about that because certainly for me in higher education, no one taught me about how you do reflection. It seems like, oh, that's too touchy-feely, but there are structured ways to do it that you're helping the student connect. Now, within all of these, you think, okay, service learning's in the middle of that, but what the key is where the emphasis is, right? Where your emphasis is in what you're doing with the student. So, if you're having the student do something and it's almost exclusively or primarily because you want them to learn academic content or experience the academics, that's probably more like internship, right? Because you don't really care if there's a community outcome. If it happened, great, but that's not your focus. Your focus is not on what the community gets out of it. It's on getting this student to have experience to go to the next step. And that's great, but that's called internship, because the community is not as a factor in that one. If you want your student to be out there in helping the community, whether they learn about your content or not, you don't care. Just go out there and do whatever you can with whatever agency, whether it's related to what I'm teaching or not, then that's volunteerism. And that's great. That's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. It depends on the emphasis that you're doing. For it to be service learning, however, you have a balance. So service learning is right in the middle, and I think in life it's always good to have a balance anyway. So service learning is right in the middle of that spectrum of emphasis. It balances out. So you have the equal desire for students to learn their academics and to benefit the community. And that was going back to my original story of what hooked me, is that I wanted them both to learn my course material more deeply, and if they can benefit others while they're doing it, that is a complete package for me. So we look for that middle ground where the emphasis is both on what the student's learning and on helping the community. So it's got to be connected to your academic coursework. Often you think, well, how am I going to know whether it is or not? And for me, I see service learning very much as a teaching methodology and an academic assignment. And so I look at it and I use the same questions I would use if I were giving any other assignment. So I say, okay, if I'm doing something, is it related to the course? You know, if I'm showing a film, or we're having a guest speaker, or we're doing a group project in class, okay, hopefully it's related to the course, so why am I doing it? And then what am I grading, right? How am I going to know that these students have learned? Am I going to have a paper? Are they going to present in the small group? Are they going to present their findings? Are they going to do a PowerPoint? How am I going to know what they learned? And that's what's graded. Okay? So when I apply that to service learning, for example, let's look at a biology assignment where we have, this is a traditional assignment. Let's say you're in a biology class and you want students to learn about wetlands reclamation, and you could have them do a research paper. And that's very typical of what we have people do. They could be 20 pages or 15 pages, and you could have however many sources, or you set up that it has to be double-spaced, and you have to have a title page and all of that. And is it related to the course? Yes. Will the grade that you give be based on the learning? Yes, because you're going to grade on how well they did that paper, how accurate and how well they've cited it and written about it. But will the grade be based on the pages that they write? And the answer is no. The pages are necessary, they're part of the assignment, but the grade isn't based on the pages. So if someone handed you a 5-page paper, you're not giving them a lower grade because it's 5 pages, there's no content. Right? They haven't given you enough content. So for me, it's always about what's being graded. What academic product am I grading? And that is what makes it service learning, because I have to see their learning demonstrated. So in a service learning class, let's say, you have the same biology class. You have them write oh, did it not go forward? Sorry. Go, thanks, okay. You have them work 20 hours at a nonprofit agency that deals with wetlands reclamation. And then at the end of that 20 hours over the semester, they're going to write a paper, and I don't know if it's 5 pages or 10 pages, whatever you've decided. But it's going to be based on what they've learned in the class and what they saw in their service project and how they've combined it for new knowledge. And so is that paper, is that project, service learning related to the course? Yep. Is the grade that you're going to give based on the learning? Yes, because I'm not grading on the service part. I'm grading on the product that they produce and how well they were able to write it. So they could be wonderful service people, and they could be terrible writers, and they're not going to get an A. They need to do the academic product well. And am I going to give grades based on the number of hours that they participated? No. No, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. If a student only does 5 hours of service, okay, they're going to get a lower grade, but not because of the 5 hours. It's like the 5 pages in a 20-page paper. You didn't give me anything. You wrote your paper based on 5 sources instead of 20 sources, so you're not going to get full credit for that. So you see, there are different ways to get to the same place. One is experiential, and the other is in some ways more passive or more cerebral, I guess. And when we look at which experience is richer, what students tell us is that it's the experiential piece. So you can have the same outcome. They're learning about wetlands reclamation, but the different ways to get to it, students are going to be much more engaged and involved in the experiential path to that same knowledge. Reflection is the key, and I'm going to kind of bracket it for a moment here and talk about different examples of reflection, because I certainly know when someone said to me at first, oh, and you're going to guide reflection, I'm like, well, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about, other than, gee, how was that for you? And that's really not helpful for them, I don't think, and a little touchy-feely. So what I find the key for deepest learning, certainly students will pick up things on their own if you don't have reflection, but we can even I don't know, raise the bar. We can make the learning even deeper because we as faculty know what the connections are. We can see the connections, so we can guide students in having them tell us what their experiences are, and then have them relate that to coursework, and then present the intersection of it. And there are some techniques. And I mentioned some of these, for this late morning, afternoon session when we're going to work on syllabus integration and service learning development, and here are some examples. One is called What, So What Now, Now What? And at first you have students just tell you what they've done. You know, I went to the agency, I met these people, I did this work, I cataloged wetlands reclamation samples. Okay, I'm not a biologist, I don't know what you would do. Just the facts of what I did. Okay? And then you up the ante with them. And this can be done in one assignment, or you could have it in several assignments. So they do the factual, and then a week or so later, you up the assignment and have the so what. Okay, so you've been telling me about what you're doing in service learning. This can be I encourage writing. It could be in a focus group or a discussion. So you've been telling me about what you've been doing and who you've been meeting and how the process works. All right, so what? Can you interpret what you're doing? What is the meaning to you for this? What are you taking away from this, right? And they will say, wow, I didn't know it. Often with, for example, homelessness, often it's like, wow, it could happen to anyone. There are whole families there. I didn't know that was possible. Or there was a student I met, and the student's living in the car. I didn't know that happened. And so they're beginning to interpret, wow, there's more to this than I had thought. And then the now what is contextual. So seeing the situation in the big picture, applying the lessons learned, insight gains to new situations. And again, the new situation could be when they go back to the agency next week. Right? It could be if they do another service. So you're trying to have them see the bigger picture. Well, what is homelessness in our society? If you're in a sociology class, you can make the ties, but you can also think about it rhetorically in English. Psychologically, you can look at it historically. There are many paths to that to see, okay, this is a larger issue that's not just my community, but it has existed for a while. And can I look at it in the bigger picture to make them have the connections? Some other examples, you could do double entry journals, which I really like because you can have the student see the connections right on the page because they're making them. So on one side of the journal, you would have the course content, what you said in lecture and what the book chapters said and all of that. And then on the right-hand side of the journal, you have them write down their experiences and thoughts about their service, and then you have them connect the two. And the connection could be even a contradiction. Often the textbooks say everything's glorious and beautiful and there's only 3 steps to something. And there's not just 3 steps to something and nothing happens that linearly. And they may get in there and go, wow, this should have happened according to the textbook, but no, it didn't because of this and this and this. And it doesn't take into the factors of hunger and no transportation to school and all these other things that they're learning. So they're drawing the connection between the two. And here, they might hand this back into you, and if you see connections or you want to talk to them, you can then make comments right back to them. Well, what about, you said you did this here, well, how did, I see that as related to the theory about Piaget's development. Why don't you read about that and tell me more about that in the next journal? So you're helping them see, and you can also, again, do this verbally. Directed writings, here you would prompt students to analyze the service experience in light of a section from the text or a reading, if you were giving out reading. So you would have them at the service agency say, okay, again, psychology is my background, so I might say, all right, you're working at a homeless shelter, and I want you to take Erik Erikson's developmental stages through the lifespan. And for the next 2 weeks in your journal, I want you to read this section, and I want you to talk about what you're seeing at the shelter as it compares to what Erikson predicted in his developmental stages. So you're directing them a bit to something that you think that they're going to be able to see, but they may not see on their own. You say, no, right, Erikson's right over there. He's all about that shelter. He's all in there. Or Piaget, if there's children, homeless children, perhaps Piaget stages. Have them apply that. And then you can also just require a list of terms to be included within journal entries, so they're looking for certain aspects of your course content within the actual experience, and then have them highlight comments that relate to the course content, right? So they're making the connection, they hand it into you, and you can see what connections they're making, and if you need to facilitate more, right? What you'll get here is because you're forcing them to do it, they'll do it, right? We all know that by the time we get to higher education, if we're not having to do it, chances are we're not going to do it. So here, build this into your course. So they are having to reflect. That's part of the assignment. Otherwise, they won't do it. Okay, so how are we going to do this? This is the 3-step process that I mentioned in the textbook, that it's never this simple. But we love 3s. So here's 3 steps. How does it fit into your course is the big one. And this is where, in some ways, I think we do the most work as faculty, where we really need to think about, okay, what am I teaching? What are my outcomes? What do I want students to get from this? Okay, what experiences would help them get that? Right? Think it through. What assignments would I have them do? How's it going to be worked into the class? We'll talk about some of that. Once you have an idea of what you're thinking or hoping to do in your class, you need to find a community partner who does that work, or partners. You can have more than one. And in a minute, we'll go to the Volunteer Houston website. You may be familiar with it. There are many others. I am not a board member of Volunteer Houston. I'm not connected in any way, but I thought, well, it's really focused on the Houston area, so I would bring that up. And once you find some agencies that might be doing the work that you hope your students will be engaged in, you need to contact the agencies and start having conversations. And while that seems hard, it's also really exciting to start talking to an agency member and have them get excited about what your students could do, and the synergy that comes from those discussions is really important. There are certainly service learning processes where you have a list of 50 agencies in the community, and you tell the students, here's the list of agencies, you go find one and make sure you relate it back to the course content. And that's okay, but it is such a richer experience if you make contact with a few agencies and do partnerships with them. And partnerships do not mean 40 hours a week with them. It means setting up the initial goals for the project, getting clear about what they're doing, having them clear about what you're doing and what service learning is. And then when the students come to the agency, it's a smoother ship for them. You also then have someone to contact, or they know you, so the student doesn't show up. They can call you if there's problems. They know who to contact, or you can contact them. So I really encourage the fewer agencies, much more direct contact. It really makes for a richer experience, even for us as faculty. Okay, so we're going to start with the syllabus, and I start many paths, but I start with the learning outcome, or the course outcomes. At San Jac, the learning outcomes that I think are to be addressed in a class: reading, writing, speaking, listening, critical thinking, computer literacy. And so you could have a service learning assignment that directs students to experience the institutional learning outcomes, right, through your content. You could have a course outcome. For example, the wetlands reclamation project I'd mentioned earlier. That would be directly tied to one of my course objectives. In psychology, I would have them, if they're doing the lifespan class, they would need to know the theories of lifespan and development. Gosh, if I have them look at Piaget and Erik Erikson out in the site, all right, that's meeting a course objective. And if I have them come and speak about it and then write about it or present back to the community agency what their experiences have been, then I'm also meeting some of those kind of broader institutional outcomes. So there are ways to fit this in where it can meet multiple needs. You need to think of how you'll help students reflect, and if you think about this ahead of time, it's going to be easier. Just like if you thought, okay, what homework assignments am I going to give? Think about it ahead of time. Am I going to do it every 2 weeks? Am I going to do it more at the beginning and maybe not as much later? How long will they be? How often do they hand them in? Do they write it every week and hand it in to me once a month? Are we going to do maybe one time a discussion where they all come together and we talk about it? But think about that ahead of time and kind of set that up in the weeks that are coming. It'll be easier for you later. And then you're going to have to say, okay, what assignment am I going to have students do so I know they've learned, right? How are they going to demonstrate that they now can read or write or speak or know about wetlands reclamation? What is the product I'm going to be grading? Okay. So thinking about all this ahead of time, it'll help you put this into your syllabus. The clearer you can be in your syllabus, the clearer the experience will be for students, because students will not have a clue about what you were talking about. They will go service what? They have no grounding in it. They have no idea why you're doing it to them. And I do mean that. They'll be like, oh, how come we have to do this? They won't have any background at all. So the clearer we can be about what this is doing and why we're doing it and how to do it, the better the experience will be for them. And the fewer problems you'll have. Okay, so Additional syllabus details, you need to think of, am I going to require it? Would it be an option in my class? Maybe it's a required project, but the whole class goes and does a one-time event at a specific agency, and then we reflect on that. Maybe you have a class that's optional, like on Saturday, anyone who wants to come, instead of writing the 20-page paper, you write a 10-page paper and you go and do this work with the whole class. Is it required? And here's the thing about requirements. Students will hate you and yell and complain. They will say nasty, horrible things about you and how mean you are. You're so mean, and how can you do this? And they have such a full life, and they're too busy, and how could you? It's just impossible for them to do it. And then you say, yeah, go ahead, do it anyway. And they come back and they go, oh, okay, this was really wonderful. And if you hadn't made me do it, I would not have chosen this option. It looked too hard. It looked too scary. You wanted me to call an agency person who I've never met. I've never been on that site. I'm scared of homeless people, or I'm scared of people who have had violence in their lives, or children with disabilities. I'm scared of those people. I don't want to go, so I'm going to do the 20-page paper. So I'd encourage you to not give up right away on it being required. I may not start with that. I would probably try it as an option first and work out all the bugs. And then when you get it really under your belt, then even in one section of a class, try it as required. And be willing, they're going to tell you their life is going to end. And you're just going to go, go do it. And they'll come back and say it was amazing, almost to a person. You have to decide on how many hours. And for me, hours are sort of the same as number of pages. It tells the student, it tells me kind of the weight of the assignment. So if I had them do a 20-hour service project, or service work across a whole semester, that's going to be a bigger thing than a one-time 3-hour project that we go to on a Saturday afternoon, right? If I gave someone a 20-page paper assignment, that's a weightier assignment than if they had a 5-page assignment paper to write. So think about how much of the course will be focused on this learning. How much of it do you want service learning to be a part of? And then decide your hours. Typically, I would say at least it would be good to have 6 or more hours. You could probably do a one-time event. If you go and the whole class goes and you do reflection that will help tie it, that will be helpful. But other than that, students need more time to see what's going on, right? They need more time to process the learning and have more experiences. So even a 10-hour experience would be good. It would be better than nothing and better than 1 hour. And then you're going to choose the assignment that they're going to do. So Volunteer Houston, we're going to see community agencies, how you find community agencies that might be doing the work you do. I'm going to see if I can move. Can I move this? Oh dear. Do I have a pointer? I think I do, don't I? Okay, now do I have a... Oh, shoot. I shouldn't have done that. Can it come back? Yes, it can come back. Okay. Maybe this is... I need a mouse. I don't have it. Mouse, where are you? Okay, so we could go to the Volunteer Houston website if I knew how to do that. Oh, I hate not knowing. Wow, okay. Let's see if this works. Whoa, it's all over the place. Okay, what am I doing? How is someone I think is doing this for me? Ooh, okay, Volunteer Houston, and you're going to see that you can search in multiple ways. And here, notice we're saying Volunteer Houston. We're not doing volunteerism, but this is a place to go to find agencies in your community who normally have volunteers come in and do the work, and you're going to want to partner with them to have students go in to do service learning at their agency, which is different than volunteerism. It's more focused. So if you scroll down to the I control multiple forces. Scroll all the way down. Oh, let's see, wait, okay, sorry, go back up. And go where it says volunteer on the right, if you can click on that one. And then you see find a volunteer opportunity. And on the whole page, it's down here kind of in the middle if the page is all open. And what I find really helpful is that you can do by zip code. So you know where your students may live. So if they're coming from a farther away place than this campus, you can have agencies that you identify by zip code, so you can narrow it down so they're not having to go to 4 hours, which could still be in Houston, but it's far, far away. You can also, if you have a keyword that you know you're looking for something, you can type it in. I find it helpful just to begin by doing select issue interest. And you'll see all of these selected. Woo, the magic thing. Okay, so just click the down button on the select issue interest, and you'll see they've categorized it for you. And so this may not be a perfect fit with what you're wanting, but it will get you started. And let's say we clicked on disabilities, or whatever you want. So whatever the magic pointer wants, and then hit search. So magic. And yes, we want everything to be safe. Okay. Then you're going to get, it's loading, it's searching for you, and it tells you 107 opportunities. Now, are all those 107 going to be perfect matches? No, but you can go through and you'll read the descriptions of them and start thinking, wow, well maybe they may be doing some of the work that I'm looking at, or you'll read something and go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Wow, I really could do that. It hadn't even occurred to me that this would work. So you can scroll down, and then when you find what you want, and you don't have to do this magic mouse, but you can just click on one you want to go to. It expands. It'll give you a more full description. It has a link where you can email the person saying, I'm interested in volunteering. I think it gives you the address, and then you can look up the phone number, and I would say call the volunteer coordinator or call the person's name if you have one listed. So for me, this gives me a place to start. Instead of having to look at everything in the world, I can maybe start looking at specific topics and then start picking some agencies that may fit with that. And there are other databases. United Way has a great database. I am not at all saying this is the only one, but I thought how appropriate that you have this resource for you here in Houston. If you go back to the home, let's see, go back to, I don't know how many pages ago, Magic Mouse, you know everything. You can decide what we're doing. You can also search by, or they'll give you one-time events. I don't know what you just see. Maybe go volunteer. I don't know if you do. Home is good. We like home. Okay, so down here on this page, it says there are many ways to make a difference, right on the middle part, right in the middle. So you could do special one-time events, which I think could be helpful if you want to do a class project. Or you want to look ahead. They have a calendar, and all different agencies have put in events that they're having for the next months. You could look on that and say, is there one thing we could do? Maybe we just focus and start small. They have resources, they say, for educators, and if you go under those resources, they have some resources about service learning. It's not specific about these agencies. It's just what it is, what to tell your agency person. It's general, but I thought that was wonderful that they had a section in there on service learning as well. So here's a place to at least get started. Right? You can kind of make a list and then start talking to people. You got to make that phone call and start making the connections, but this will get you a little bit more pinpointed. Okay, and Magic Mouse, we can now go back to the presentation. I love this. I wish I could just say words and then like other things in my life would get done. That would be great. Okay. So we'll look at this again this afternoon. We'll have more time if you want to look through this database and see what some options are. And certainly you have your own options. If you want to see a fuller range, you can look. You contact the agencies, and you've got to talk to the volunteer coordinator or the name of the person on the contact sheet. And because they may not know, if they've never had service learners, they're not going to know what you talk about. They're like, what? I would bring my syllabus with me, and I would just tell them, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Yes, the student who comes here will do service work, but it needs to be focused on, here's the curriculum. Here's what I'm hoping. Is there something, do we have some ties? Is there something you see? Can we do something together? You'll need to educate them as much as you need to educate the students, because they may not know if they're not a partner with another college. I also encourage you to, once you've got some agencies that want to do this and you've picked them for your class, is when you're introducing service learning to the students, have your agency members come with you. Have them meet the class. And that will help a lot because students won't be as afraid, right? They're going to go, oh, they don't have horns and they're scary people. Their names are Mag and John, and I could contact them, or I can go up afterward and ask them about something, a concern I had. So it'll get the class much more excited. And it will alleviate some of their fears. And the agency personnel are usually very, very happy to do this because they're recruiting a whole classroom of people who might come and help them. Some additional details to think about how you're going to orient students to service learning. I would certainly mention it in class, and I would certainly have a contract, because what you say in class will be forgotten almost before they leave the class. And later they'll go, no, you never told me that. And you're like, yes, I did. Here's the contract. In fact, you signed it. Well, I didn't read it. Then you're stupid. You're an idiot. You should have read this. Okay, maybe you'd say it in a nicer way. That would be in your head. That would be your inside voice. Yeah. So specifying all the requirements to, for what you're doing. If the person's not going to show up at the agency because they have something, they're sick, they need to call the agency personnel and how to go about doing that. And they need to let you know. And if they have problems with the agency, they can come talk to you, and you can run some interference. So you just set it up ahead of time, so students at least have a sheet that can tell them what they should be doing, whether they read that sheet or not. How will you deal with students who do some service hours but don't do them all? So again, if you had someone who, here I've got a 7-page paper for the 20 pages, that's the best I could do. Okay, I think you just failed, because 7 out of 20 pages is like only a third, and so you have a 60%, even if everything was perfect in the 7 pages. So think ahead of time and tell them, if you don't finish the hours, then we don't go beyond that, right? You have to do the work. You have to have the number of pages or the number of references for you to pass minimally on this assignment. And then how often and how will you check in with your community partner? And if it's a new partnership and you're new to it, I would say more at the beginning, making sure students are showing up, are there any problems, anything you need to address in class? And then as things get going, it can be less frequent. But keep the contact, just a phone call real quick. They're busy and they won't talk forever either, so it'll be perfect. Okay, so here are some online resources that you can go to that have syllabi, they have examples of student contracts, they have examples, if you're doing training for faculty, they have faculty orientation packets, they have liability information if someone's concerned about, oh my gosh, we're going to be sued. There's information about liability. The National Service Learning Clearinghouse has a K-12 section and a higher ed section. So, I would encourage you to go to the higher ed section, because others will be for K-12, how to integrate it into the curriculum. American Association of Community Colleges has great publications, and as I'd mentioned, Gail Robinson is a great resource. Campus Compact, each state, I don't know if your college participates in Campus Compact. It's kind of expensive, and usually universities participate, and they pay money, and there's a state compact that usually gives grants, and it supports service learning. The beauty of it, though, is even if you don't belong, you can still go to their website and use all their material. And then I wanted to put in a plug for the Community College National Center for Community Engagement. Love the name, how they came up with that, CCNCCE. It's coming up in May, at the end of May, and it's an excellent practitioner conference for service learning. It's all community colleges. People come, it's a day and a half, so it starts on, Wednesday night they have an opening, all day Thursday, and then half a day Friday. It's usually the week before Memorial Day, and it's in Scottsdale, Arizona, and so often people just stay over Memorial Day. It's at the end of their peak season, so rates are often very generous because it's getting really, really hot there. And you can get, like we stay at a resort, there's a resort where they have it at, and like rooms are $109, and it's this beautiful resort. So you can make a little vacation out of it, and it's amazing because you'll have a lot of practitioners, you'll make contacts, you'll get to see a lot of models, a lot of ways people are doing it, and it can just, again, spark your creativity and get you some contacts. Okay, before we finish, I've got one more thing before I tell you the end and go to questions. Could the magic pointer hit on final thoughts? I've got a video that I'd want you to see. This is an example of what you could do and what the impact can be.
Pass It Forward was an event that we did in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And the basic premise was just to go out in the community and make a meaningful difference. And the idea was that you can do things in your everyday life that will make a difference. It doesn't have to be something huge. And so We had 200 students come together.
Students can learn by reading, students can learn by, writing, but by doing it's really important. And so when they have an opportunity to actually engage in some sort of activity, then that they can think about how what they're learning connects with their actions, it's called experiential learning.
We ended up going to Goodwill and we bought some blankets and some scarves, handed those out to people.
We also went to Big B's and we picked up some coffee for, I think, 3 people.
For our group, we decided that we'd go down to in Rosa Park Circle where they were ice skating and hand out some pizza.
One of the things that we did was we paid for people's laundry. We went to the laundromat and we kind of hung out with people and paid for their laundry.
We saw a guy on crutches and we asked him if he rode the bus, and we got a bus pass for him and gave that to him.
And then we carried on to the gas station, did something that a lot of people did, which was paying it forward by buying some gas. We had a little bit of money left.
We found a dog, a stray dog, and we made signs for him, put the signs up.
Our group decided today to actually visit the Grand Rapids home for veterans.
I think it's a good thing to do for people who don't have enough money to wash their clothes or dry. It's a good thing.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, we saw the movie Pay It Forward, so they're doing something for the community which is really productive, and it should teach us something to pass it on, continue it on.
You think you'll pay it forward?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
It was a lot more heartwarming than I would have expected. People were more welcome than I would have originally expected.
We kind of realized how unaware most of us are of this stuff too, and most of these people out here that are homeless really spend most of their life and their time and their effort on just the basic necessities.
It was really cool because everyone's reaction was really cool to it. They were a little hesitant at first, but then they were willing to take it once we explained what was going on.
All right, and how this relates to communication is basically it's your approach. It's pretty sad that you can walk up to somebody and they will literally keep walking, maybe because they feel profiled. I don't know what they're doing, but it's unfortunate that happens.
I decided to relate this to sociology curriculum because in sociology it's all about social classes.
We're in psychology class, so we kind of noticed that the general perception of people is if someone's approaching me, it's because they want something from me or they're trying to sell me something. So it was kind of nice to be able to help them change their schema of the situation.
We decided to tie it into diversity, and especially at the laundromat, there's a lot of different people. There were college students, Latinos, blacks, whites, people from all different tax brackets. It was interesting to see that, we all come from different backgrounds, but there are common themes and common things that all humans have an experience.
I know their struggle, I know their despair, because 25 months ago I was with them. I was amongst the homeless.
If I was standing in line at the homeless shelter waiting for a free haircut, it was really going to take a certain kind of interaction to get me to put my problems aside and give a darn about anybody else, because there's enough on my plate. But we did that today for some folks, and I've been in their shoes, so I really know what that's worth.
If it's not even anything but a hope shot, to let people know that they can do better, to encourage and to inspire people every single day, because they didn't wake up saying that I want to be homeless.
I was there at Daggett at one time, but now I'm going to graduate from college, and this means so much to me.
We ended up buying a gas can for a guy who needed some gas. We paid the $3 for him to fill up the gas can. And then another guy who heard what we were doing, had seen us standing around, said, oh, okay, this is part of this pay it forward. Yeah, I'll pay it forward too. Come on, guy, come on in my car. And so he gave a ride to the guy back to his own car, because his own car was about a mile away. And he goes, look at me, I'm paying it forward. So it was great. So. We ended up buying a gas can for a guy who needed some gas. We paid the $3 for him to fill up the gas can. And then another guy who heard what we were doing, had seen us standing around, said, oh, okay, this is part of this pay it forward. Yeah, I'll pay it forward too. Come on, guy, come on in my car. And so he gave a ride to the guy back to his own car because his own car was about a mile away. And he goes, "Look at me, I'm paying it forward." So it was great. So.
Wonderful, thank you. It's Grand Rapids Community College, and they took, usually on the day of service, MLK, Martin Luther King Day of Service, it's really a day of service. It's not typically tied into service learning with the curriculum. What they did is that they had it tied in. So they had the students do service and then come back and relate it back to their academic disciplines. And they found things like you think, oh, I'm just giving money at the laundromat, but wow, there's diversity and communication and so many things that go on in there, and the students are seeing that. So it's just one example of what you can do to make a pretty huge difference. It was pretty amazing. You can go to the next slide, which, I can do that, sorry. See, you get me used to the magic pointer, and I'm like all over that. Here's my contact information. Feel free always to contact me. I give you my rosebud color at Yahoo, because either way is fine. And that's it for me. Wow, and I did it. Questions, comments? Yay, I was so, oh no, sorry. I was thinking, I was so good, I just know how come it's. Good. What kind of liability issues or problems to start thinking about? Typically, certainly if you have a lawyer on campus, if you've got some legal person, you should always contact them first. But in general, the liability, since the student is going to go onto the community agency site, they have insurance. So if anything happened to the student on the site, then the volunteer insurance should cover that. You can, of course, have them sign something that says, we're not liable if anything happens, and you're agreeing to go to this. Of course, how that will be held up, I don't know. Typically, there's not been. I don't think I've had. I don't think I've encountered any need for the liability. I mean, I would think if someone slipped, or if they got in a car accident. I don't think we'd be any more liable than if they were going to the library. We weren't taking them in the bus, and we weren't doing it. In the Service Learning Clearinghouse website, they have a section on liability. So you can read through it and see what kind of concerns you should have. But do know that all the volunteer agencies have insurance. And please ask, make sure that they do, so your students would be covered on site. Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah, getting startup can be, getting everyone going at first is hard. So if they need to do a background check, it can take up to 2 weeks. And I've had students who, even at the university, you kind of need to tell them ahead of time, because maybe they don't want you to do a background check because something will come up. And you don't want them embarrassed. You just need to let them know ahead of time. Maybe they need to go try another agency.
The whole experience. And so it's so important to have students do kind of a walkthrough or an observation, a needs assessment, and then reflect on the needs, and also the planning aspect, to give everyone a voice, to sit down with the agency and the clients, or they sit down with their clients, and everyone has a voice. That was really driven home in that national conference, and it really touched me. So I really have to work those components in. The planning with the agency and the reflection throughout is vital. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, the National Community Youth Service Conference is really amazing, because they also have youth there, and so it's very exciting, very high energy. Okay. I'll be around. You can ask me later. Thank you so much.